you can actively attune to that state. Absolutely. You can actively become present. You can actively reattune your heart to the love that is there between you and your lover. Absolutely you can. But if you are in the hope that you will just, do whatever you're doing and then slap a state of Eros on top, it's just not going to work out. We will just remind you real quick of the first part of the lecture from last time. We were speaking and defining a little bit the terms of Eros and sex, which are clearly defined within the Tantric realm, you could say. So we were making this little poll of your worst sexual experience ever, consensual, non-criminal sexual interaction, and the best sexual interaction or erotic interaction that you might have ever had. And you quite naturally told us why those worst and best erotic experiences were so. And many of you were sort of in a consensus that usually not so great sexual experiences are so because they are to a degree unaware, unconscious, unpresent, maybe without love, maybe lacking rhythm, maybe to a degree robotic, and so forth. Whereas our most wonderful erotic experiences are usually determined by being present to one another, being loving, having a synchronized way of being together, feeling really connected, and so forth. And basically these two, they gave already quite a nice, let's say, first idea of what is sex and what is Eros and Tantra. And basically you could imagine that these two flows of amorous energy, creative energy inside of us are opposite to one another. The sexual flow going down and the erotic flow going up. Or sometimes we like to take this analogy of two escalators. The escalator of the sexual energy, unconscious, not so loving, not connected, filled with agenda, and so forth, egoistic, or even just like, oh, let me engage into this and see what will happen, which always means see if I can get something out of this eventually. All of that would be the down-flowing sexual stream. Sexual energy going down, Eros going up. So there's this distinction between these two. The sexual is on the front of unconscious, non-loving, agenda-driven flow, whereas the erotic flow is loving, connective, going towards oneness, enlightenment, so and so. And we also said that usually we tend to have a bit of a combination between the two, and we aim in Tantra to purify that and to only go for the erotic manifestation in order to make our sensual experiences a spiritual tool. That is the whole point of it, basically. And within these lectures that we are presenting, we wish to give you each time a bit of a tip, a trick, something, a modality to connect more and more to this upward flowing energy rather than the downward going one. And last time we were speaking about the Gift of Shakti, right?
So in the process of giving, or in the process of polarizing, when a man and woman polarize, already from the first kiss, subtly inside the woman there is a great gift taking place. As a woman can give the gift of life, she gives through polarity, she gives this polar gift every time there is a polar interaction. There is attraction, there is affection, there is love, there is a safe, loving space for that interaction to take place. She can start to give her gift. Once, or if this space stays safe and loving continuously, constantly, then the process of giving the gift will be harmonious, will be fluid, will be complete, and they will receive, both of them, this gift. It doesn't have to, it won't be a child, but it will be like a love, a vitality, a joy, a creativity. And you know it both, like, how do you feel after you make love? How do you feel after you make love? You are filled with happiness. There is a certain creativity, there is a certain vividness, life seems to have meaning and so forth. This is the fundamental gift of the feminine. If in the process of polarizing there are tensions, it's no longer safe, it's no longer loving, it becomes selfish, then they will both get wounded in the process and the gift will not be given fully.
Now this is a rather short description of what we were talking about last time. It was much more complex than that. If you wish to see it, please go to our YouTube channel, and also when you see this on YouTube, which eventually will happen, please subscribe and give us a like for this video and hit the bell for notifications and leave us a comment below and tell us what you think about the subject. The core aspect in the lecture today that we want to talk about is to give another distinction, basically, of how the erotic flow and the sexual flow manifest. And now I'm already using the word flow because that's what it boils down to. There seems to be a certain way of accidentally accessing, let's say, the downward escalator, if you remember, the sexual manifestation of the creative potential, which is, I repeat, unconscious, agenda-driven, etc., etc. And then there is a certain flow, a certain natural access towards the erotic flow that goes upward, if you remember, conscious, loving, connected, even enlightening, and so forth. So we want to give you a few ideas of making the difference between these sort of two types of flow, because this is something that I've encountered speaking to people about their erotic experiences in this whole context of Tantra, is something that is quite difficult to catch. It's like, okay, yeah, but I was just letting go and just going into the natural flow, and then shouldn't there arise Eros from that? And then guess what? Eros didn't arise from that, and what do we do about it? So we want to talk a little bit about this today. Now the first thing that we have to understand is that as a society we sort of normalize the so-called natural, let's rather call it automatized flow into the sexual, into the downward pointing, selfish, unconscious, at least agenda-driven type of manifestations of our erotic potential. When you think about how sexuality is utilized in marketing and advertisements, in movies, just generally in society, in the way we approach the courting process, flirting, the whole pickup artist scene, but also just, you don't have to be a pickup artist to be sexual. It's, you know, it's just the whole way that as a society we approach the amorous potential is of a sexual nature. So in general, when we say, okay, I just let it go, typically that means we become unconscious. Letting go sort of means, okay, I let go of my awareness, and then we will very typically slip into this unaware, downward pointing, sexual, and therefore agenda-driven, selfish, instinctual, non-loving, etc., type of drive. The let's say problem of entering this sort of automatized flow is that it lacks awareness. And then people think that they might be aware because they have by now, compared to 100 years ago, a much greater awareness of what is going on with them sexually. So people by now, most of them know where the clitoris is. So they're like, well, I'm pretty aware, I know where the clitoris is. I know what's a penis, I know where it goes, I know my kinks, I know I like to spank, I know I used to like to spank and now I don't like it anymore, I know I like this gender or that gender, or I like this or that. And then we have this idea, well, yeah, I'm pretty aware, you know, so let's go on the erotic escalator, just let it flow, and we go there. But the particular awareness that we're speaking about that makes the difference between this automatized flow downward into the sexual or the natural flow upward into the erotic is the momentary awareness. How much awareness do I bring to the erotic act right now in this very second? So this makes the big difference. Uriel likes to give this example of how in history and also just
recently.
Also recently, yes. Again and again, basically. There is this thing, and without trying to stigmatize, but at least historically, there is a tendency for men to rather perform these sort of acts. People have been, making huge scandals and crises and killing people and making war to be with someone. If you just think of the whole war of Troy there, where to be with a woman, to share romantically, erotically with her, all sorts of things are done. The family is sold out. To be just for a little bit with that prostitute, I will give up my marriage and I forget about my children and I treason my country and I don't know what. But then when it comes to the act, it takes 2 to 10 minutes and there's zero awareness within it. If then you would ask, well, but then you sold your country, you made a war, you lost everything you had, but what did you feel in your lingam, in your penis? How did it feel? No idea. How did it feel in your body? Oh, yeah, it was sort of nice. You know how it is. The awareness within the moment usually is totally lacking, even though we might give a lot of investment in the whole build-up to the process in itself usually falls short of awareness and therefore falls short of this upward rising of erotic flow. So just to sum up this downward automatized flow, it will tend to be instinctual. The let's say flow feeling of it is due to being overpowered by instincts and evolutionary programming that rises up and then leads to another action, and then it appears like a flow, which is like, okay, I just let go, I just let myself fall into the unawareness of instinctual behavior, and then whatever comes, sort of. Now, this is very different from the erotic flow, which also manifests in a way that we feel we can completely let go and give ourselves, even like offer ourselves completely to something manifesting through us. And sometimes might be confusing. It's like, well, yeah, I'm just letting go. What is the big difference? So the flow that leads towards an erotic experience is a flow that is guided by being aware in this very moment of what is going on, bringing total presence to what is happening right now, and within that presence bringing a deep love, a deep connection, not so much bringing, that's actually silly, just becoming aware of the deep connection, the deep love that is there between the two hearts. When you enter that particular, I even like to call it space of connectivity, a state of sharing one another, it even feels as if you are already one. From there, Eros will naturally arise. There is then no more push and pull. There's no more desires. It's not anymore this feeling that the other has something that now we need to acquire. This is something we talked about last time. That the woman has some gift there and then let's acquire it. Or I want some certain appreciation or some certain pleasures from my beloved and now I go for it and I want to have it. But much rather the two lovers enter into a state of being in each other's presence, being in the presence of their love, being in the presence of the erotic nature that is inherent in them. It doesn't need to be created then and there. It is already inherent in them. And when they enter that particular state, it even feels sometimes like it's even called sometimes an erotic trance, a beneficial erotic trance state, in which you already perceive the oneness between the two, even if you are not touching. The other one is still on the other side of the room, on the other side of the city, or whatever the situation might be. But you are already connected so deeply to one another that from that connectivity, now the erotic game unfolds. And there's no agenda to it, there's no moves to it, there's no timeline to it. It's not like scheduled in a specific way, but it will unfold exactly in a way like the universe, the divine God, if you will, is manifesting through you, is creating this spontaneous godly experience through the two of you. In this way, things will unfold exactly in the right measure. In this, maybe you've been in this flow state when you work, for example, or when you create art, and you spontaneously enter into the state where you just create. You don't need to eat, you don't need to sleep, you don't need to think about anything else, you don't have any problems. You just are, basically. And in that state of being, you create, you do all sorts of stuff, way more than you would maybe usually do in a normal work week. And the same happens in this erotic flow, in this beneficial trance that you enter when you simply become aware of the love of the connectivity between the two of you, and then the erotic process and thereby the uplifting of energy into the conscious, into the loving, unfolds. Now, in order to shift towards this type of flow, rather than the so-called automatized flow, you could say, that leads downward into the sexual, you can follow a few stages. So the first thing would be to recognize this state and to distinct it from other states of flow that you might think you are experiencing. Also be aware that your whole being is wired to go for the instinctual, for the evolutionary impulses that are inside of you. It is hardwired to do that. So it will require your awareness, your presence to the loving connection that is there, to first of all recognize it and to understand when am I in this beautiful erotic flow, and when am I in other types of automatized flow. You can always recognize it by 1, how present am I? 2, how loving am I in this very moment? How present am I right now? How loving am I right now? And what is driving me right now? If there's something inside of me that wants something that isn't, and let me just rub a little bit and then we... Okay, already probably flirting with the downward going escalator. So when the answer is, I'm fully present here and now, completely there, I am filled with love, I am filled with unity, with connectivity, there's no other things occupying me, I'm entering already into a state of silence, my mind becomes naturally quiet, and therefore also I can see, okay, nothing is driving me, I just am here now, and from that state of being, things start to occur. That would be, let's say, some pointers to recognize the state. Once you recognize the state in the action, which I'm sure all of you, because you've all given answers to the question, what makes good sex really good? What makes a good erotic experience so wonderful? So all of you have had at least sparks and glimpses of erotic experiences, beautiful lovemakings where the state of unity, of upliftment, of energizing is so obvious. Once you recognize it in the game, recognize the state inside of yourself. So in Tantra, the eroticism is not just considered something that happens there between two people occasionally, but it is considered a godly attribute. It is considered a nuance of the godly nature that will be present within you all the time, no matter what people might be around or what you might be doing. Once you become aware of the state of eroticism within your own being, just because you have a body in this world, you are living and breathing, you are breathing in the universe all the time, it doesn't get more erotic than that. Once you can recognize the erotic state within you, unrelated to your lover, to any other thing, then now it becomes like a trait within your being. The third point, so after you become aware of the erotic trance in the act, then you become aware of the eroticism, the erotic nature within your own being as it is, and it becomes a trait. Then you can start to tune into that state, and let's say even bring it, not as in creating a certain activity, but just bringing this state of being into the bedroom consciously. So you've detected it in certain lovemakings, you've detected it as a quality inside of you, as a godly trait that you carry, and now you go back into the bedroom and you search actively for the attunement into that state. You create the conditions that you might need to attune into that state. You might need to adjust your movements, you might need to adjust your speed, you might need to practice a bit, like some yoga practice, meditation practice before you meet your lover. Whatever you need to recognize that state inside of you when your lover is with you, attuning to it and then staying with it. And then the fourth point is that Eros is typically, the flow of Eros, of upward going, aware, loving, erotic manifestation, is typically interrupted when you are trying to do something, when you are trying to make it happen, when you're trying to slap it on top of what is going on. Eros rises from a combination of presence and love. That's just it. It's not something that you can slap on top of something. Sure, you can actively attune to that state. Absolutely. You can actively become present. You can actively reattune your heart to the love that is there between you and your lover. Absolutely you can. But if you are in the hope that you will just, do whatever you're doing and then slap a state of Eros on top, it's just not going to work out. So typically when we try to start to do something, that already brings along with it an agenda. So this might in the beginning be quite a bit of a juggle, and especially for men, as in Tantra we have this notion of amorous continence, where you actually keep the ejaculation to yourself, you keep the semen inside, you have inner orgasms, you keep the potential of your, let's say, creative nature inside of you to nourish you. And in the process of learning that, sometimes you might need to act. You might need to squeeze a muscle. You might just need to stop and pause and breathe. And of course, you will sort of need to allow yourself to still do that, especially while you're in the training process. But then make sure that when these actions that you sometimes just need to do because simply that's your status of practice somehow occur, that then you take the time to reattune to the erotic state. That will be the moment where the sexual, the downward going, the unconscious, the disconnected, the agenda-driven, the instinctual-driven aspect of the creative drive will step in and will try to sort of deviate the whole process. So it's a little bit in the stage of training especially, but it will also remain like that. It's a bit like walking a tightrope. You have to be, if you're walking on a wire, you have to be fully aware of what is going on, but you have to be completely relaxed. Otherwise, the smallest wind, the smallest little movement of the rope will disrupt what you're doing there and kick you off somehow. What you can take here as a general outline is let all actions arise from the state of Eros, the upward, conscious, loving dimension, this trance state that I was talking about. And if it's not there, or you are not sure, just stop. Just breathe and stop, and then get yourself back into that state, rediscover that state, recognize it again inside. Bring the awareness, bring the attunement to love, so that you can readjust to that state. Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content on spirituality, Tantra and more.
And if you want to sign up for our online classes or for our retreats, you can see our website on the description below.